Welcome back, everyone. And the second verse, same as the first, it appears. Cory Booker now has the most ambitious gun control proposal of any 2020 candidate. Booker wants to acquire a license to buy and own a gun in the U.S., going further on guns than any other Democrat in the 2020 race. Spartacus is going to take your guns. Senator Cory Booker, Democrat, New Jersey, sums up his ambitious new gun control plan in one sentence. If you need a license to drive a car, you should need a license to own a gun. Of course, Spartacus here forgets that driving a car is not a right, it is a privilege. The keeping and bearing arms, pretty high up in the Bill of Rights. On Monday, Booker unveiled his proposal to tackle America's gun problem as part of his bid for the presidency, detailing a plan that sets a high bar for the rest of the Democratic field. His plan includes the typical Democratic proposals: universal background checks, an assault weapons ban, better enforcement of existing gun laws, and more funding for gun violence research. I'm going to stop here. 1. Universal background checks. It's code for registration. They can't seize guns until they know who has them. Assault weapons ban. The AWB of the 1990s would never have affected AR platform weapons. You see, assault weapon was defined as fully automatic. I believe it was later updated to include select fire, which would be an M16, capable of being on safe, semi-automatic, 3-shot burst, or fully auto. The AR-15 is a semi-automatic only rifle. Pull the trigger, I don't care how long you hold it, only one bullet is fired. So the AR platform would never have been banned under that AWB. Better enforcement of existing gun laws. Enforcement on gun violence, criminals who use guns, would be to put them in jail and leave them there. And of course, more funding for gun violence research means more funding for groups that will advocate for you to be stripped of your rights. But Booker's plan goes further by requiring that gun owners not just pass a background check, which we already do, but obtain a license to be able to purchase and own a firearm. This is a far more robust gun control proposal than any other presidential candidate has proposed. The idea has solid research behind it and real-world experience in 9 states that currently require a license or permit for at least handguns, including Booker's home state of New Jersey. I wonder how well that works out when the criminals buy a Uzi or MAC-10 out of the back of a crappy old car. The plan would go toward addressing a very serious issue. America currently leads the developed world in gun violence. Let's see, take out California and Chicago and tell me, and Baltimore, Maryland. Tell me how those numbers change. One big reason for that is that America has the laxest gun laws and the most guns of any developed country. The research has consistently found that places with easier access to guns and more firearms have more gun deaths. Wrong. Kennesaw, Georgia. It is all but illegal to be an adult in Kennesaw, Georgia, and not own a firearm. Meanwhile, it is actually illegal to be an adult in Chicago, Illinois, and own one. Which one of those has the higher rate of gun violence? But let's go a little bit more normal. Let's look at Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas. Okay, very large area. Don't know how the size compares to Chicago off the top of my head, but I believe they're not too dissimilar. Now, Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas goes by the basic federal law. An FFL dealer runs a background check on you. If you pass, you get to buy your firearm. There are no additional state or city laws that prevent you from buying certain types or so many a month or whatever. It's just that we enforce federal law. Look at Chicago, where it is all but impossible for any law-abiding citizen to have any type of firearm at all but impossible. And tell me which one of those metropolitan areas has more crime. So far in the 2020 campaign, guns have not, surprisingly, gotten much attention. More than a year ago, the March for Our Lives movement that came out of the Parkland, Florida school shooting revitalized America's broader debate about guns. No, it was children demanding adults obey them, pushing the issue to the forefront in the 2018 midterm elections. But so far, 2020 Democrats have mostly stuck to a tried script on gun control, even as they push for fairly sweeping ideas in other areas like single-payer health care, the Green New Deal, and dramatically hiking taxes on the super-rich. First, March for Our Lives was children being spoon-fed scripts by liberal journalists on how to cry on cue and accuse adults who won't give up their rights because we've broken no laws of being bigoted, hateful monsters. Single payer health care will not work. You need only look to the UK, where parents were told their sweet little child, Alfie, had to die because UK doctors had diagnosed, well, he's dying, there's no way to fix him. The parents were told point blank they could not remove him from the hospital to seek treatment elsewhere, despite the fact that his mother and Alfie were actually dual UK and Italian citizens. I can tell you, had I been in charge of it in any way of Italy at that point, I would have had Italian police march into that hospital and say, my citizen will be released right now. Green New Deal, $90 plus trillion. Even Kamala Harris is admitting taxes on the middle class must be raised. And dramatically hiking on the super rich. Well, why don't we start with the 500 and some odd millionaires in D.C.? Why not go to Barack Obama and tell him, in his own words, I think you've made enough money? Why not go to the Democrats who are millionaires because of lobbying and speaking tours? Tell them to pay their fair share. Why not tell Senator Bank Fraud Bernie that he needs to sell his mansions, move into a home more in line with the salary of a congressman, sell off his yachts, fleet of cars, and other things, and pay his fair share? It's 1984, it's Animal Farm. Orwell is spinning in his grave. I'm not actually going to continue reading this because I'm getting a migraine just doing it. I can't do much with Vox. But I have looked at Booker's plan. One, he's treating a constitutional right like a privilege. If I drive without a seatbelt too many times, okay, not endangering anyone but myself, and I don't do anything that puts anyone at risk, I drive safely, I just don't wear a seatbelt. I do that too many times, I lose my driver's license. I do it too many times after getting my license back, I never get my license back at all. That's because driving is a privilege, not a right. Guns, however, and contrary to what the liberal media would tell you, no, it is not about muskets. It is not about militia. It is about the people having a right to keep and bear arms. You see, to the liberal side of politics, the founders are so amazingly brilliant. They knew that Twitter and Facebook and cell phones and tablets and everything would come along. So all they said was speech, because they knew technology would advance and we would have all these ways to speak. But they were monumentally ignorant of the fact that firearms technology would advance past what they were holding in their hand. So no firearm other than what was available in 1776 would ever be covered. They're the most brilliant and ignorant at the same time. Of course, Booker wants to go further than this. Much like Nukes Swalwell, he plans a ban and buy back, meaning he's going to tell you what type of firearms you are allowed to have. Meanwhile, his security will be carrying fully automatic weapons and will shoot anyone who is deemed a threat. And if you don't sell back at a pittance to the government, he's going to put you in jail. And granted, he hasn't gone full off the deep end like Swalwell. We have nukes. But he's not far. For anyone who doesn't understand, the AR-15 is not an assault weapon under any form of the AWB while it was in force or any edits to it. That was about automatic weapons, not semi-automatic. The AR platform was developed in the late 1960s with the idea of selling it to the United States Army as becoming their primary rifle. The Army, like anyone with a brain, said, no, I'm not going into war with a semi-automatic. They then went to gun manufacturers and had them design what ultimately would become the M4 and M16 carbine. Yes, it can switch magazines with an AR-15, and it uses the same caliber, 5.56 or .223, but it is select fire, meaning safe, semi-automatic, 3-shot burst, or fully automatic. And while I will admit, yes, if a soldier was in a firefight and for some reason their M16 quit working and they saw an AR-15, all of them would eject a magazine and put it in that AR and keep firing. Just as they would pick up an AK-47, draw a 9mm or 45 caliber pistol from their side, use a shotgun, or whatever it is they have available. And that's where Booker and Swalwell and the rest of them show their absolute ignorance on the topic. They keep using terms like weapons of war and ignoring that their own security carries weapons that they want banned. There was a running gag not long ago on a Marine Corps video that they tweeted out showing them training with 12-gauge shotguns and 9mm pistols. The running gag was, shh, don't show this, they'll call those weapons of war. But if they get their assault weapons ban, where they take away your AR, if they get that, soon it will be, well, the Mini 14 is really the same gun. They'll finally admit it. Well, that has to be banned. Well, you don't need a 308. What do you need a 308 for? That's too powerful. Banned. Why would you need a 7 mag? Banned. 30-06, the bullet goes too far. Banned. What, you mean the military uses pistols and shotguns? Ban them all. 10 years ago, this all began in Venezuela, and look where they are now. The one major difference would be that the people 10 years ago probably didn't have as many firearms in private ownership as the U.S. does. And if any of this actually happens, we need a few things. One, we need the Supreme Court, which luckily right now would say, I'm sorry, no, that's unconstitutional. Struck down. But if the Democrats get their way, they're also going to pack the court, because they're just going to change it without passing a constitutional amendment, I would bet, to 15 judges, where the GOP in Congress nominates 5, and the Democrats nominate 5, and those 10 then nominate the other 5. And of course, we all know the rhinos would, of course, never betray the people. Should that happen, of course, many states will decide it's the best thing on the planet. Many others will decide, you've just negated the Constitution. Therefore, you've just negated the entire country. We are gone. And thankfully, the third thing we need, we will have in vast numbers. That being, the military will walk off their post. Yeah, they might keep 10 to 15, maybe 20% of the numbers, but with 80 to 90% walking away, turning and standing shoulder to shoulder with the American people, they will have no way to enforce their so-called common sense gun control. But what else do you expect from people who think that Ruger should be held accountable monetarily and criminally for the actions of the end user, but then decry the insanity of saying that GMC is in any way responsible for what someone does behind the wheel? For those of you who don't get it, that's the exact same thing. Holding GMC, Ford, Dodge, whoever, responsible when Joe Schmo drives drunk is just as idiotic as holding Ruger or Smith & Wesson or Walther or anyone else responsible for what their end user does. But there's one thing that never really gets talked about. The Democrats know all of this. The only real difference is when they read 1984, Animal Farm, Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451, they were sitting there thinking, this is an instruction manual, we have to do all this. While those of us with brains that actually have the ability to use logic sat there and said, when we see these people, we need to recognize them and get them out of office. We have a chance next year. There's an old saying that treat every election as if it's the last in your life. And sadly, it will be the last one before my youngest nephew is old enough to vote. And if we don't stop the tyrants in sheep's clothing next year, he may never get to vote in a United States election. But I've talked about it long enough. Let me know what you think. Of course, keep the comments civil. If you're going to make fun of Booker, Swalwell, or the rest, do it on their Twitter feed. We don't learn from argument, we learn from debate. As I've said before, I will block, or at the very least hide from the channel, anyone who simply is here to start trouble with vitriolic diatribes or other rants that do nothing but insult people. Also, please remember to like, comment on, and share this video, as well as to subscribe and activate notifications so that you are the first to know of all new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.